Dead flies cause even a bottle of perfume to stink. So a little foolishness spoils great wisdom and honor. A wise person chooses the right road, but a fool takes the wrong one. You can identify fools just by the way you walk down the street. If your boss is angry at you, don't quit. A quiet spirit can overcome even great mistakes.
There is another evil I have seen under the sun. Kings and rulers make a grave mistake when they give great authority to foolish people and low positions to people of proven worth. I have seen even servants riding horseback like princes, and princes walking like servants.
When you dig a well, you might fall in. When you demolish an old wall, you could be bitten by a snake. When you work in a quarry, stones might fall and crush you. When you chop wood, there is a danger with each stroke of your axe. Using a dull axe requires strength. So sharpen the blade. That's the value of wisdom. It helps you succeed.
If a snake bites before you charm it, what's the use of being a snake charmer? I mean, wise words bring approval, but fools are destroyed by their own words. Fools base their thoughts on foolish assumptions, so their conclusions will always be wicked madness. They chatter on and on and on. No one really knows what is going to happen. No one can predict the future. Fools are so exhausted by a little work that they can't even find their way home.
What sorrow for the land ruled by a servant, the land whose leaders feast in the morning. Happy is the land whose king is a noble leader and whose leaders feast at the proper time to gain strength for their work, not to get drunk.
Laziness leads to a sagging roof. Idleness leads to a leaky house. A party gives laughter, and wine gives happiness, and money gives everything. Never make light of the king, even in your thoughts. And don't make fun of the powerful, even in your bedroom. For a little bird might deliver your message and tell them what you said.
Hey, there's an American Indian fable that tells the story of an Indian that found an egg laid by an eagle. Not being able to return the egg to the eagle's nest, the next best thing to do was to put the egg in the nest of a prairie chicken. Now, as you can imagine, the result was rather predictable. A hen sat on the eagle's egg, along with her own eggs, being completely unaware of the additional eagle's egg. And so after some time had passed, the baby eaglet was hatched alongside all the other prairie chickens. And so all his life, this eagle thought that he was a prairie chicken. And he did what prairie chickens do. He scratched in the dirt for seeds and insects to eat. He clucked and cackled and even flew in a brief thrashing of wings and flurry of feathers no more than a few feet off the ground, because after all, that's what prairie chickens were supposed to do. That's how prairie chickens fly. So years and years passed by, and the eagle grew very old. And so one day, as he was sitting next to his prairie chicken friend, he looked up in the sky, and he saw a magnificent bird flying far above him in the cloudless sky. Hanging there with graceful majesty on the powerful wind currents, this bird soared with its strong golden wings. Wow! "What a beautiful bird," said the eagle to his prairie chicken friend. "What kind of bird is that?" "Well, that's an eagle. That's the chief of all the birds," his prairie chicken friend clucked. "But look, buddy, don't give it a second thought. You and I, we could never be like him. After all, we're just prairie chickens." So the eagle never gave it another thought. And that eagle died thinking that he was a prairie chicken. You see, built to soar into the heavens, made to be the chief of all the birds of the air, this eagle settled for the life of a prairie chicken, grubbing worms and scratching around in the dirt and flapping his wings as he flew just a few feet above the earth. Friends, our world is filled with people that choose to settle for mediocrity, people who are satisfied with earthly living, and it's easy for people who thought that they were nothing more than prairie chickens to continue to act like prairie chickens. Friends, it's so easy to choose the wrong way of living. It's easy to simply do something because everyone else around you is doing it. I mean, surely if everyone else believes in something, then I should believe the same thing, right? I mean, the world doesn't value marriage, well, then neither will I. The world doesn't believe in God, well, neither will I. The world hates others that are different than them, then so will I. The world says, do whatever you have to do to get ahead in life, then so will I. The world says to always focus on my wants, my needs, and hey, don't worry about other people. Just worry about yourself. And that's what I'm going to do. And so now when I look in the mirror, I notice that I look and act and think just like all the other prairie chickens around me. Over the last 9 weeks, King Solomon has been talking about this prairie chicken lifestyle of living. A life of meaningless plucking, a life of empty cackling, a life of flying just a few inches off the ground, even though we were created to soar above the clouds. Last week, Solomon gave us incredible wisdom for how each of us can stop living like prairie chickens and start living like eagles, where we spread our wings and we fly above the foolish ways of the world. And as each of us look at this incredible life that Solomon is suggesting for us, we can look at it and we can say, wow, that's so beautiful. How can I live like that? And we can either listen to the voice of God and become more like the eagle we were created to be, or we can listen to what the world says. Oh, look, buddy, don't give that a second thought. We could never be like that. I mean, after all, yous and I, we just prairie chickens. Last week, Solomon gave us 8 insights into how we should live life above the ways of the world. He gave us 8 practical day-to-day life lessons that actually separate the prairie chickens from the eagles. And today in chapter 10, Solomon has 7 more ways that we can soar above the ugly ways of the world, where we can find true happiness and fulfillment in life. So friends, let's dive in. Here's Ecclesiastes 10, verses 1 through 3 and verse 8. As dead flies cause even a bottle of perfume to stink, so a little foolishness spoils great wisdom and honor. A wise person chooses the right road. A fool takes the wrong one. You can identify fools just by the way they walk down the street. When you dig a well, you might fall in. When you demolish an old wall, you could be bitten by a snake. Let's talk about this. So in these 4 verses, Solomon gives us 4 visual images to really help us understand a very important life lesson. Solomon is saying that you and I must realize that stupid decisions can ruin my reputation. Now, the first visual shows us how our reputation can be ruined by stupid decisions. So Solomon paints a rather stinky but memorable image into our brains. Now, think about for a second your favorite cologne or your favorite perfume or lotion or essential oil that you love to smell. Can you smell that right now? Smell that scent kind of in your mind. Can you smell it? Now imagine a few flies come motoring by and they land in the perfume, and suddenly they all drown in the perfume, where their little winged bodies slowly decay into the flowery fragrance you love. And now your beautiful Bahama Breeze scent smells like roadkill rank. And your amazing perfume has been spoiled by something rotten. Friends, it doesn't take much to ruin or tarnish a beautiful reputation. You see, the decisions that you are making right now matter. What kind of friends you are hanging around right now, it matters. Look, do your friends cause you to make poor decisions that ruin your character and reputation? Are your friendships with the wrong people more important than your reputation and how others might perceive you? Is the beautiful person that God created being tainted by the foul smell of bad influences, foolish friends, and poor decisions? Look, maybe your life really stinks right now because you keep making one ignorant decision after another. And Solomon is like screaming to you through this chapter, and he's saying, stop it. Don't allow the ugly stench of others to impact your reputation, your life, your successes, and your relationship with God. Now, the second visual Solomon gives us is then a person walking down the street and having to choose what path to go down. Look, are you going down that earthly path that says wisdom and wealth and work and pleasure? Yes, that's the most important thing in life. Or are you going down that path that is different? That path that will bring to you everlasting fulfillment and eternal rewards? Are you going to follow the chicken prairies? Or the prairie chickens? Or the eagles? Are you going to follow fools or God? Friends, the reality is that you get to make a choice how you're going to live life. Are you going to go down the path of good choices that honor God? Or are you going to go down that path of sinful choices that actually align yourself with Satan? Look, God has given to you free will, and this means that He allows you to make whatever decision you want. You can be wise and follow after Jesus, or you can be foolish and follow the ways of the world. Solomon gives two more visual images in these opening verses. So first, he reminds us to be careful when we dig a well because we might fall in. And then second, he tells us to be careful when we tear down a wall because a snake could be hiding in the shadows, ready to bite. Now look, Solomon's not really necessarily talking in literal terms here. He's using these examples as illustrations to remind us of the negative results our bad decisions can have on our reputation. You see, before you make a decision, like digging a well, make sure you plan ahead and prepare and think through how you're going to dig the well so you don't accidentally fall in. Look, before you demolish a wall, it might be wise to look around and see if something around it might hurt you. Now look, while those analogies might not seem really to apply to your life today, the wisdom still stands the test of time. But maybe these examples would apply more to your life today. So before you go out drinking with your friends, you might want to think about where you're going, what you're going to be doing, the trouble that you could get in before you agree to go out with them. Before you decide to send that text message or meet up with that attractive coworker, you might think about the amazing spouse that God gave you. You might think about your children, and you might think about how stupid the decision would be to do that, because it could not only ruin your reputation, but it could very well ruin the rest of your life. You must realize that stupid decisions can absolutely ruin your reputation. Solomon continues with another lesson for living life, verses 4 through 7. If your boss is angry at you, don't quit. A quiet spirit can overcome even great mistakes. There's another evil I've seen under the sun. Kings and rulers make a grave mistake when they give great authority to foolish people and low positions to people of proven worth. I have seen servants riding horseback like princes and princes walking like servants. So Solomon is reminding us that we are going to witness some really ignorant people making really ignorant decisions in our life. We're going to have people yell at us when we don't deserve to be yelled at. We're going to see people promoted above us that have no right being our boss. We're going to see many stupid decisions that cause us heartache and pain. You see, Solomon is saying that we have to remain level-headed when surrounded by stupidity. That's my paraphrase. Does anyone here know a foolish person? Is there someone in your life that just really irritates the snot out of you? Is there someone that makes you cringe every time they open their voice and spew out a foolish remark one after another? Is there anyone like that in your life? And women, stop nudging your husband. Surely it's not that bad. Now look, I'm serious. We all have people that come into our life at some point that just drive us crazy with the things they say, the way they act, the way they live their life. Look, maybe it's a family member, maybe it's a coworker, maybe it's a boss, or maybe it's someone you're trying to be friends with, and maybe they just have this unique and almost perfect way of getting under your skin. They say the wrong word, they give you the wrong look, they act the wrong way, and suddenly it just sends you off in a tirade of how crazy they must be and how foolish they must be. Friend, Solomon is saying that it's actually foolish for you to get upset at all the stupid people around you. He's telling you, you need to rise above stupidity. Don't live in the land of prairie chickens. Soar above stupidity with the eagles, and don't let stupid people bother you. He's saying, guys, you've got to remain level-headed when surrounded by ignorance. Don't let one person, look, we do this so often, don't let one person ruin your day, your week, your month, your entire year, or worst case scenario, your entire life. Don't let ignorance and stupidity cause you this spiral to go downward and you hate life. Don't let the actions of others cause you to fly off the handle where it suddenly starts ruining your own reputation. Look, here's the reality. When you fly off the handle at the actions of ignorant people, you're actually placing yourself in the same coop as the prairie chickens. Instead, you're to rise above the ignorance and soar with the eagles. We're to remain level-headed when surrounded by ignorance. Now, Solomon's just getting started, so put your seatbelts on. Here's the third piece of advice. Let's go to verses 9 through 11. When you work in a quarry, stone might fall and crush you. When you chop wood, there is danger with each stroke of your axe. Using a dull axe requires great strength, so sharpen the blade. That's the value of wisdom. It helps you succeed. If a snake bites before you charm it, what's the use of being a snake charmer? So once again, Solomon gives us like 4 different scenarios for us to sort of ponder and chew on. So it's a quarry and a stone, chopping wood with an axe, a dull blade or a sharp blade, and a snake charmer and a snake. So what does all of this mean? Well, it means that we have to rely on God's wisdom for right timing. Let me explain this. Look, for most people, life moves at an incredibly fast pace. We have this desire to gain success as quick as we can, achieve greatness as quick as we can, and get what we want as fast as we can get it. And oftentimes, I think that leaves us in a very vulnerable position where harm can come our way. Look, when your life is consumed with getting what you want when you want it on your timeline, then you might end up being like the guy in the quarry that was so consumed with doing other things his way, he lost sight of what was important, and he got crushed by a stone. Look, when life is going 100 miles an hour and you make decisions without properly praying or seeking wisdom from God, you might actually forget to sharpen your blade as you're chopping wood, and now it's going to take you twice as long to finish the project. Look, when all you care about is getting that promotion and you're tired of waiting for that raise and you leave a fairly good paying job with benefits for the riskier job that turns out to be a bust, you're suddenly like that snake charmer that got bit because he didn't put his time into charming the snake and waiting and being patient. Friend, Solomon is reminding us that we can't live life relying on our own wisdom because at some point you're going to get bit. Wisdom's going to fail you. You're not going to see that falling rock. You're going to forget to sharpen your blade. You're going to forget to charm the snake, and you're going to get bit. We have to rely on God's good and perfect timing. Look, when we try to make things happen in our own timing, we often lose sight of the things that are most important in life. That job promotion becomes so much more important than your family. A good relationship with that attractive coworker, that would be so much easier than putting all the hard work into fixing my marriage. That new house becomes more important than getting out of debt and saving for retirement. You see, when we get consumed with things happening on our own timeline, instead of trusting in God's timing, rocks fall, blades are dull, and snakes bite. But when we trust in God's good and perfect timing, opportunities arise, relationships are mended, and blessings pour forth from heaven. Friends, we must rely on God's wisdom for right timing. Now, Solomon continues with another valuable lesson for living life. Here's verses 12 through 14. Wise words bring approval, but fools are destroyed by their own words. Fools base their thoughts on foolish assumptions, so their conclusions will be wicked madness. They chatter on and on. No one really knows what is going to happen. No one can predict the future. Now, Solomon goes back to, in these verses, he goes back to a reoccurring piece of advice that we've actually heard several times throughout the entire book of Ecclesiastes. You see, look, Solomon's very, very smart. Keep in mind, he's like one of the wisest guys God created. He knows that people have a hard time listening, so he strategically repeats several very important lessons for life throughout the entire book of Ecclesiastes. And so once again, right here, Solomon is saying that a truly wise person must speak less and listen more. Friends, I really hope that God has been teaching you this valuable life lesson over the last 9 weeks. Speak less, listen more. Think before you speak. If you have nothing nice to say, don't say it at all. Look, by simply opening your mouth, you can turn a lifetime of accomplishments into a sideshow of stupidity where you ruin everything you have worked for, and now your reputation is just flushed down the toilet. Friends, think before you speak. Look, you don't always have to win the argument. Did you know that? You don't always have to win the argument. You don't always have to get in the last word. You don't always have to make the person that disagrees with you agree with you. Friends, your quality of life is going to be so much better if you just listen more and speak less. Don't get so worked up about foolish people. Look, they can be foolish all they want, but you, on the other hand, can uphold your reputation, and your response can be saying nothing at all. Solomon continues. Here's verses 15 and then 18 through 19. Fools are so exhausted by a little work that they can't even find their way home. Laziness leads to a sagging roof. Idleness leads to a leaky house. A party gives laughter. Wine gives happiness. And money gives everything. So what's happening here? Solomon is reminding us that we must avoid wasting our life away by hoping that other people will do all the hard work for us. He's saying that we shouldn't be people that avoid work and just simply try to mooch off our parents as long as they'll feed us or give us free rent or wash or dry our clothes and make a bed for us. Solomon is saying that you will actually experience true fulfillment in life when you work hard and you avoid laziness. Look, Solomon says that a fool works for a very short amount of time and then spends all the rest of their time complaining about how hard they worked for those grueling 30 minutes. You see, a fool spends more time complaining about working hard instead of actually using that time to work hard. A fool wants to mooch. A fool wants others to do the work for them so they can just sit back and do nothing. A fool avoids hard work. In fact, Solomon says that a person that seeks a life of laziness, like a person that's like, my aspiration in life is to be lazy, right? That type of person is going to have some devastating consequences in their life. Now, once again, Solomon provides some cool imagery to a much bigger problem. See, Solomon says that a person that wants to live a lazy and idle life, well, they're going to have a sagging roof and a leaky house. He's saying that the lazy will never have nice things because they don't really care about keeping them up. A lazy person doesn't respect the resources that God has given them, and they treat their treasures like trash. You see, when laziness invades your life, you lose your will to take care of the things that God has given you. You lose your respect for your resources, and you treat your things, your relationships, even your church, like trash. Look, when you truly respect something, let's take a relationship, for example. You work hard at making that relationship great. If you need to, you go to counseling. You go on dates. You whisper sweet little nothings in your spouse's ear. Right, babe? I'm sorry I had to bring you into that embarrassing situation. Look, let's go another example. When you truly respect God's church, you work hard at making it great. You volunteer in a ministry. You show up when you say you're going to show up. You give your time and your resources, and you work hard at making the church great. Look, when you love something, you work hard at maintaining and making it great. And look at what Solomon says next. Here's like the result of hard work. He says you're going to have laughter and love and happiness and food and drink, and you're going to have money. When you truly care about something, you're going to work hard. You're going to avoid laziness. And when you do work hard, there's great benefits and rewards. 2 more lessons for life. Number 6, Solomon says, I must lead others in wisdom and maturity. I think this is kind of a cool thing here. So for the last few chapters, Solomon has told us that we need to listen to the wise wisdom of others. And now he sort of turns that statement towards us. And he says that you and I, we need to be men and women and children that lead others in wisdom and maturity. Verses 16 through 17. What sorrow for the land ruled by a servant, the land whose leaders feast in the morning. Happy is the land whose king is a noble leader and whose leaders feast at the proper time to gain strength for their work, not to get drunk. See, Solomon is saying that it is so ignorant for a leader that expects his or her staff to do all the hard work while he or she just sort of sits back and does nothing. How foolish it is for a leader to demand greatness from his or her staff while never working hard or simply feasting on all of the rewards that the hard-working staff is producing. A true leader will lead with wisdom. A true leader will lead with maturity, knowing that a successful company, a successful home, a successful marriage is not one where a dictator tells everyone what to do while they act in an opposite manner. A true leader understands that they must lead by example. If you want your employees to show up to work on time, you should probably be on time yourself. If you want your spouse to treat you better, if you want your spouse to be more respectful, then why don't you try being more respectful to your spouse? If you want to raise a family or a church that depends on God for all things and seeks spiritual maturity in all things, then you need to show your family, your church, how to pray fervently and live a holy and God-honoring life. Lead others in wisdom and maturity. And when you do, I promise you, you will discover much greater fulfillment in life than you can even imagine. Solomon has one last lesson for living life. And it's a very artistic and short, creative story. So he says, this is number 7, keep criticisms and confidentiality quiet. But here's how he says it. Verse 20. Never make light of the king, even in your thoughts. And don't make fun of the powerful, even in your own bedroom. For a little bird might deliver your message and tell them what you said. I love the way Solomon ends chapter 10. I love it. Honestly, I think it's brilliant. And of course it's brilliant because he was inspired to write this by the very mouth of God. Look, over the last 2 chapters, Solomon has been talking about foolish people. Track with me here. He's been talking about foolish people. He's been telling us that we don't want to be like those foolish people. We don't want to be like those prairie chickens. He's been telling us to be godly men and women and children and soar high above the clouds with the eagles. Don't get involved with the foolishness of the prairie chickens. But then he makes one last final statement that I believe cuts straight to our heart. Let me paraphrase what he's saying. He's saying, for all you eagles that are flying high above the clouds, keeping your distance from ignorant and foolish people, make sure you hear this warning. Never consider yourself better than the prairie chickens. Don't say bad things about them in your head. Don't curse them in your thoughts. Don't make fun of the prairie chickens with your eagle friends. Don't whisper bad things about them, because someone might hear what you were saying. Someone might tell them what you said. Someone might see how prideful of an eagle you actually are. So for all you eagles, make sure you don't get a big head and blow your own reputation with evil thoughts and costly criticisms. Friends, if you know that you have been surrounding yourself with prairie chickens, and you know it's time to soar with the eagles. You don't need to make a spectacle of who and what you are becoming. You don't need to go up to your friends and say, hey, I'm making some really cool changes in my life. I met God and I realized that I need to live my life differently, and frankly, you be ignorant. So talk to the hand, we ain't friends anymore. For the love of God, please don't do that. That is not really how you want to represent Jesus Christ. Instead, start showing your friends your new way of living. Invite them over to do something that isn't sinful or harmful to their relationship with Jesus. Lead by example. Show them the way an eagle flies. Teach them how to spread their wings and open up their minds to a new way of living. You don't need to criticize them. You don't need to make fun of them. Frankly, you need to love them. You need to love them like Jesus would. Now, can you imagine, just for a quick second, what would have happened to that eagle if Jesus would have been by his side? Instead of that prairie chicken that discouraged him and told him that he would never be anything more than just a prairie chicken, can you imagine how that conversation would have gone if that eagle would have been talking to Jesus? Wow, what a beautiful bird. What kind of bird is that? Well, that's an eagle. That's the most beautiful bird in the world, Jesus replied. Do you want to know something, buddy? You've never realized it, but you're an eagle too. And I created you to soar high above the clouds, where there is peace and safety and solitude and fulfillment. Buddy, you no longer have to grapple and cluck and spend your time 2 feet above the dust that keeps you bound and blinded from the truths of why you were created. Buddy, all you have to do is spread your wings, trust me, and fly. And with that, Jesus spread his wings, and he began to fly away. And for the first time in this prairie chicken's life, he realized he was an eagle. And so he stretched out his wings, he took a deep breath, and he started flying after Jesus, high above the horizon. Let's pray.